Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Lauri Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drue. Our guest today is Randall Silvis, author of The Deepest Black. We're going to be chatting with him today all about his new release and a time when he walked the unknown to solve a mystery within his life. Welcome, Randall.
Thank you. It's always great to see you, Lauri.
It is a pleasure to see you as well. What is something that's been mysterious in your life lately?
Um, I've had a couple of fingers poke me on the shoulder when I've been lying in bed listening to a podcast. And the first couple times, they didn't seem to have any intent, except maybe to say hi. The third time, I was holding up my Fire tablet, trying to decide which podcast to go to, and I opened one. I listened to it for a couple minutes, and then I was just getting ready to change it, and a finger poked me on the right shoulder and said, "You need to listen to this." And I heard, "You need to listen to this." I said, "Oh, okay," but I did listen to it, and I didn't take anything significant away from it. So you
Mm.
know, it's kind of a contradiction there. Maybe I was just being too dense, or anyway. But that happened probably within the last month.
Hmm. The messaging is always interesting as you never specifically know what you're supposed to get from it. Just that it's there and you're supposed to pay attention, but to what?
Yeah, and I am every time something happens to me like that, and many have. I always look for the meaning behind it.
Mm.
Why? Why did this happen? Why did it happen to me? And what am I supposed to take away from it? Only a couple times out of the 32 or so that I've chronicled in a new manuscript, only a couple times was I able to discern an intention, but
Mhm.
not necessarily a meaning.
Mhm. Can you share with our listeners and viewers what The Deepest Black is all about?
Well, the deepest black was I had a remaining 2 book contract with my publisher, Source Books,
Mm.
and I knew that I was going to wrap up the DeMarco mystery series with 5 books. I knew that with the 5th book, he would complete his spiritual arc. So I said, "Do you mind if I do a standalone with the 6th book?" And that was fine. So at the time, there had been a triple homicide about 10 miles from my house. And I thought, okay, I'm going to turn this into a kind of in cold blood executioner song where I, writer, am investigating this mystery and I'm writing about it as a true crime. But when I got into it in the research and I got to the point where I needed to contact the murderer, the alleged murderer, who was in jail awaiting trial, I found out that from that jail, that county, um, no one could speak to inmates awaiting trial except the lawyer or the family. So I contacted the lawyer, and nope, I couldn't. They wouldn't let me talk. They didn't want to talk to me about it because he was awaiting trial and it might prejudice somebody or whatever, even though the book would take another year to come out. So I was kind of stymied. I had no idea where I was going to go. And up until this point, I fully intended the entire thing to be a true crime novel. Uh, but I'm trying to figure out where to go next. And there's a Chinese buffet right beside the Planet Fitness where I used to work out. And every now and then I'd give in, and after I'd work out, I'd go over and put the calories back on at the Chinese buffet. I usually would have a notebook with me and a set of earphones or earbuds in, just to kind of isolate me from everybody else because I'm that kind of guy. And so I was sitting there enjoying my California rolls, and this young, I call him a kid because he was to me, someone in their 20s, mid-20s or so. He looked to be is still a kid. And he came walking past me with his tray of food. And he stopped and he said, Randall Silvis. And I said, nope. And he said, yes, you are. And I said, nah, you got the wrong guy. And he chuckled and he sat down at my table. And then he started asking me about my work. And he seemed to know way too much about me for me to be comfortable. It was just a little creepy, you know? And I asked, I said, are you one of my former students, or how do I know you? And he said, no, we've never met before. But he had asked me about Mysticus and Occasional Hell and all of my books, not just the mysteries. And he had some really insightful things to say about them. And while I was flattered, I also felt a little creeped out by it all. I tend to be something of a recluse, especially around here. I don't want too many people to know. Otherwise, they're all going to send me their manuscripts and say, will you show this to your agent? Will you critique it for me? So, but I went back home afterwards. I even went over to Planet Fitness and I described the guy, and I said, he says he's in here all the time. No, they couldn't tell me who it was. And then I guess, I'm lying in bed one night I tend to wake up about every 90 minutes, and I tend to wake up around 1 o'clock and then 2:30 to 3 or 3:30 to 4, depending on when I go to bed. And during one of those times I woke up and I thought, I'm going to use this guy. I'm going to put this guy in the story. And right there, and I'm going to open with me at the buffet and him coming up. And from there, the nonfiction, there was still going to be a lot of nonfiction included, but other parts of it were going to be reimagined and dramatized. So what I did was I started thinking about, because the guy's presence in my life and the knowledge that he had, it just seemed a little bit, as I say, creepy, but almost verging on the paranormal. Mm-hmm. I had other people in my life come up to me and start talking to me, and they knew a lot about me. I had one guy when I had a torn cartilage in high school in one knee, and back then it was a major operation, not laparoscopic. And this guy came in with a chocolate milkshake, my favorite, and he said, I hear you like chocolate milkshakes. I said, yeah. He started asking me all kinds of questions about, about school and my girlfriend, and I had no idea who he was. And he stayed there for a while. We talked, and he just said, you'll be okay, you'll be fine. Just because I was a little bit worried about whether I was going to be able to continue in track and football, and he reassured me. He left, and about 30 seconds later, my dad comes walking in. And I said, who's that guy that just walked out, Dad? And he said, what guy? I said, the guy in the trench, the beige trench coat, and probably in his 40s, mid-40s, something like that. He said, I didn't see anybody. And I said, you had to have seen him. He just now walked out. And he said, no, I didn't see anybody. So I've had that happen before, and I had the same sense with this guy. And I just, from that point on, when I put him in, then it became a hybrid of fact and fiction. And it is not only me trying to investigate this triple homicide, trying to get information, but him or somebody like him, because he's only in that one scene and then he disappears. But he is referenced frequently because he tells me that I should interview a young woman named Phoebe, who was a tenant in the house where the murders happened. And that part was fictional. But in my conversations with Phoebe, she would keep referring to him. And she'd say, Thomas said that you can only meet me 4 times. Thomas said you can only ask certain questions. As if this guy is pulling the strings from somewhere. And she finally tells me later on that he told her that he worked for a secret group called the 13th Floor. And I tried to research that and all other kinds. But it's a series of things that happened to me, and all of them did actually in real life happen to me. not exactly as portrayed because I dramatized some of them, but everything that I have in there happening to me did happen to me, except for one, and that was me getting beaten up behind the church. That did not happen, but I did see my friend who I think is deceased, and I think he was deceased at the time. I did see him and wave and call out to me as he went by, and I jumped in my car and chased him. But it did not end in me getting the stuffing beat out of me behind the church. So,
Mm.
the, and the setting is completely true. It's two towns near where I live. So all of the setting is true. The things that happened to me are true, but other things are fictionalized around that.
Hmm.
There's
I
your
love
what is
I
that's
love
certainly not an elevator pitch. That was way too long. Sorry.
I really love this book, Randall, because it is different than your other novels. But I feel like because of the true crime nature and you investigating right along, trying to document and figure this out, my Nancy Drew loving heart was like, okay, let's go figure out that information behind why this is happening, what's going on, who is this guy, like all these questions that are creeping up for you as you're searching out information.
Thank you. I tried to write it so that the reader is right there beside me, learning what I'm learning, experiencing what I'm experiencing, so that it's a journey of discovery not only for me but for the reader as well.
Mhm. Without any spoilers, what was something that was shocking or hard for you to process as you were documenting what was going on with what you were seeing and feeling?
Um, I think all of them are pretty hard for me to process. The spirit attack in the Scottish Rite Cathedral, I still haven't processed that.
Mm.
Even though I've had a couple of other spirit attacks since then. But I mean, I wasn't hurting any. I kind of made a challenge to spirits in the Scottish Rite Cathedral. And for those of you who are familiar with the Scottish Rite Cathedral, it is the step beyond the 33rd degree Mason, and those Scottish Rite cathedrals have a reputation, whether it's justified or not, I can't say, but they have a reputation for being heavily involved in the occult.
Mhm.
And when I walked into that one for the first time, I felt a tremendous amount of negative energy. And I said, my first words when I walked in, I said, "Oh, a lot of bad things have happened in this place." And
Mhm.
it wasn't 30 seconds after that I couldn't breathe. I had the spirit attack. So it's hard to process that those things can happen so spontaneously and so easily, and that you have to be aware of all those things if you're going to be involved in this kind of seeking. Uh,
Mhm.
everyone who's experienced in it, more experienced than I was at the time, cautions that once you start stirring things up, once you start looking at them, they're going to start looking back at you. And not everyone, not all of them are not all spirits are beneficial. Not all higher beings are beneficial. Um, you just have to be prepared for it. So now, ever since
Mhm.
that, I was given this as a gift. It's a St. Michael Guardian medal, and now I
Mhm.
wear it everywhere I go. And when I go into a place that is alleged to be haunted by other than three-dimensional human beings, I always protect myself. I ask for protection, and so far things have worked out all right.
Mhm. When was the moment that you decided to say yes to investigating this case? Was it when you were in bed and thinking about this man that came and visited you, or was it a different time?
So my logical mind was constantly saying no, but the other part of me, I've always believed that everyone, and especially I believed it even before I knew I was going to be a writer. So for me, I had to know everything. I want to know everything that I don't know, and I finally reconciled myself that no matter how hard I try, no matter how many scars I collect on my body or whatever, I'm never going to do more than scratch the surface in this existence. But so what? I still want to know as much as I can. And so, it piqued my interest, and each step along the way made me more and more um, certain that I was going to keep going. It sort of guaranteed my involvement in it, and that's the way it is with me in real life too. I've always said that if you want me to do something, tell me I can't do it, because I will do it. Just to prove it to myself, that you can't tell me what to do. It's kind of childish and immature, but it's the way many of us are wired, and I was born that way.
Mhm. I'm smirking because I see that part of myself in you of 100%, and then the whole curiosity of always trying to find the answers behind everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I always wanted to know the reason behind everything. I started out in college as an accounting major, so the left side of my brain is fully developed and working well. The right side of my brain is curious and creative, and a risk taker, and so when you have both parts of your brain, they argue with each other frequently, but still, I end up believing exactly what the Gnostics believed, and that is that the only true knowledge is experiential knowledge. Faith
Mhm.
isn't that important, belief isn't that important. You have to have your own personal experience with the divine to really be enlightened, to have that illumination, that moment of illumination. And so I'm always seeking that experiential moment, no matter what I do.
Mhm. We have a question coming in for you, Randall. Hi,
Oh, my
Elizabeth.
goodness. All right, that's good. That's fun.
Love Saint Michael. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for being here with us. What do you love, Randall, about investigating to find a story?
Uh, it's that moment of discovery, something new. Even when I was a little boy, and I spent a lot of time alone. You and I have probably talked about that in the past. That
Mhm.
there were no kids my age in the little village where I grew up, and I had woods that way and woods that way, something like 8 houses in a row on a ridge line, and woods surrounded by woods. No kids to play with. I had an older brother, but if I got too close to him, he was going to punch me. Uh, he punched me in the thigh, punched me in the arm, put me in a headlock. That was his way of, man, I don't know, maybe it was his way of expressing love, but um, yeah, I tried to give him a wide berth whenever possible. So I spent a lot of time from a very, very young age uh, just out in the woods or riding my bike on the dirt roads, the country roads, walking down to the river and walking along the railroad tracks. Um, my parents were both blue collar. The father worked in a steel factory. My mother worked in a bottling plant, and my siblings and I very early got blacklisted by every babysitter in 3 counties. So we were home a lot by ourselves, and if I just took off and disappeared, my brother didn't care, my sister didn't care. They didn't try to track me down, and I was on my own a lot.
Mhm.
And wherever I went, I never really repeated my route. I tried to vary it. Okay, I know where I can get the crayfish out of that stream. I wonder where the stream goes, or hey, that hill over there. I wonder what's on the other side of that hill. And I was always doing that and always getting lost, but being kind of excited by being lost because this was new, this was different, and even becoming a writer. I grew up in the coal fields of Western Pennsylvania, a very rural area, and it was not the kind of place where we came out of it with big dreams. You know, well, I came out of it. I came out of high school thinking, okay, I can either get a job in business or I can get a job as a teacher. Those were within reach. Uh, but later when I was in college and I had a couple professors during the same week, both told me I had talent as a writer. That was something new and interesting. And yes, I had been an avid reader, but I was reading things like Shorty at the Tournament and The Kid Who Batted 1,000, and I hadn't even made it up to Kurt Vonnegut yet, probably. I got a third class rural education because all those schools cared about was sports, and I played sports and I was better than average in them. So there were no educational demands really put on me. I did well, but I could have done a lot better had I ever taken a book home, you know. But I cared about sports, I cared about music, and I cared about girls, not necessarily in that order. And nobody tried to sway me from that. What was your original question?
I love it because we were talking about what different things, why you like to investigate to find the story.
Yeah, I just like to learn new things. I like to, and I have this insatiable hunger to understand stuff and to know things. I can remember when I was 3 or 4 years old, I loved the wind. Man, I loved to just go out and stand in the wind. And I would stand here in the wind and I'd say, I know I can fly if I could just remember what I used to know. And because I knew that I knew even at that young age that I had forgotten a tremendous amount of knowledge about the world. And I know I used to fly, and I still dream. I would dream about flying, um, and I just knew I could. And I think that feeling that I knew that there was something else beyond this world was why I've never really been afraid when things have happened to me. Never been a lot of fear. I feared that I was going to die during the major spirit attack, but I had no fear of the entity itself, if there was one, because there was nothing there. But the times I've been poked, by the times I've heard somebody out in the woods where there's no one else, you know, say my name. The times I've had a feminine hand caress my cheek when I was meditating. All of the things that have happened to me, there's never really been any fear. In fact, I think I've faced down a couple opponents, spiritual opponents, and just by saying, I'm not afraid of you. I know who you are. You can't hurt me. And you know, I say go away, or I'll see that you go away, and they go away. So even younger, but mostly through the experiences over a lifetime, I'm not afraid. The things I'm not interested in, I really don't. I have no real interest in ghosts. I don't want to go ghost hunting. You know, those are troubled spirits. They're hanging around. They've got their own issues. I believe they exist. I don't need to prove to myself that they exist. I'm not terribly interested either in aliens. I've never seen an alien. I've seen an alien hand touch me, but I've never seen an alien. I know they exist. If I could talk to some, that would be great. I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to have a conversation with a fifth dimensional being because I want to learn. I want to ask questions. I've got a whole list of questions to ask God if I ever see him. And he's got some things to account for as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I just crave knowledge. And every new experience provides some bit of knowledge.
How have you changed, Randall, from your experiences that you put into The Deepest Black?
I don't think that I've changed. Well, I did in one way. Yes, I did. Definitely did. The fact that I actually put some of my true experiences into that, like 3 or 4 of them, it's sort of, why not? I'm in an age, why not? Why don't I just go public with them? So I've recently finished a manuscript called My Strange and Stranger Life, where I document 32 of the most dramatic ones. I've left out the little ones, the synchronicities and all that stuff that I think a lot of people have. They just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But I did delineate in detail, I think 31 or 32 that have happened to me since I was very young and up to now. And I know that some people are going to be critical of it. Some people are going to call me a quacker. He's just making these things up. But those aren't the people I'm writing for. I'm only writing for people who have an open mind. Maybe they don't wholeheartedly believe. Maybe they've never experienced anything themselves. But if they have an open mind that these things are possible, that's the first step. You have to have an open mind to them.
Yes.
And just sort of be alert for them, because as they happen to me every single day, as they probably do with you as well. Synchronicities of one kind or another, numbers, there's double and triple numbers that are always popping up. They all have significance. Sometimes I think it's just, and I always say, hey, thanks, it's nice that you took the time to do that, but what the hell does that mean? Talk. Let's just, why can't we just have a two-way conversation? And I'm just always trying to find out, and more than I now know.
Yeah, we definitely do have that a lot in common, but one of the things in common is we've both had multiple near-death experiences. Can you share some of those with us?
I'll tell you about a couple, and I'll try to keep them short, because I do delineate them in detail in My Strange and Stranger Life, so I don't want to give away all the bones of that. I got to get that to my agent and see if there's any commercial viability to it. When I believe I was 19, I might have been 20. I was late for work. I was working in a YMCA on Saturdays, flying low in my dad's car, and I came up a blind hill, and I was 2 seconds from smashing into one of those big, if you're not familiar with the coal, we just call them coal trucks, but they're huge in coal mining, strip mining area. They're huge. They take up an entire lane. And I came within 2 seconds of smashing into either the one coming towards me, the one sitting in front of me waiting to make a turn, or the one coming towards me. There was no else. There was a ditch over here, a high bank, houses over here. It had to be one or the other. And I just I just knew I'm dead. I threw my hands in front of my face, hit the brake at the same time, threw my hands in front of my face, and it didn't crash. I had my eyes closed. I was aware of myself just sitting there with my hands still over my face and my eyes closed. I'm not dead. And I'm on the other side of the coal trucks. They're both still where they were. I'm on the other side, a distance of probably 25 or 30 yards. Instantaneous teleportation. There was no way. There was no way for me to avoid dying or being severely, permanently injured by that crash, because I was flying low. I was going as fast as my dad's little car would go. And then the other time was I took my wife white water rafting, and it was her first time, my third time, and because I'm frugal, I said, look, we don't need those big 6-person, we don't need to get one of those big 6-person rafts. I'll just buy us a raft. So I bought a little 2-person Kmart raft for the Youghiogheny River class 4, 3, 4, 5 rapids. And we hit the first set of rapids, and we both were catapulted out like corks out of a champagne bottle. And we were in that water for a long, long time, being dragged. And we both, I think came close to drowning. Other things interfered, and in not, I wouldn't say interfered. They interfered with our drowning, I think. Things like that have happened to me. I almost fell off a cliff. It was a fairly sheer cliff, and I was probably 40 feet in the air.
Wow.
I couldn't get a handhold. There was nothing else to grab hold of. It was free climbing. Nothing, and I was a novice. I'd never done it before. I shouldn't have been there. This is when things happen to me when I shouldn't have been doing them because I don't have the skills to do them. But I also, I don't like to admit that I can't do something. So I was climbing with a couple of friends, two brothers, and there was no toe hold. I couldn't find another toe hold. I couldn't find another grip. I tried to make too big of a reach, and I completely. I'm free of the cliff. I jumped. My body jumped. It literally jumped 2 feet so I could grab it. Now, the guy beside me, the younger brother of the two, he said, "What the F did you how the F did you do that?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "That's not possible." And I said, "I understand that. It's not possible. But for some reason, it's my body did it. I didn't do it. I didn't consciously think at that instant that I slipped that I needed to jump. My body just jumped. How do you jump in midair? I don't know, but it happened."
Yeah. Yeah. Elizabeth has a question for you, Randall. Feel the same about synchronicities. Did you go through a stage when you felt so overwhelmed by the phenomenon that you felt you were going crazy? Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. Fortunately, no, because I went through a difficult period back in 2012 or so, and it was a low period for me, um, and I knew that I had to find some way to quiet my mind because it was always fretting, always worrying, always trying to figure things out. And so I returned to meditation. I've been meditating. I meditated when I was younger uh, until my boys came along, and then I started taking care of them. But I started meditating again in earnest, and at the same time, I started reading spiritual literature a lot. I read about alchemy, and I read about the Kabbalion, and I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read very different texts, and I was also listening to a lot of podcasts and everything I could get my hands on. I had a lot of time then, and that's one of the reasons it was a difficult time for me. And so I knew these things would happen. And especially after I read the book on alchemy, that's when I started getting a lot of number synchronicities.
Mm-hmm.
And they opened up my alertness to other synchronicities as well. And I started knowing I was going to hear from somebody at a certain that I hadn't heard from. I still do it with frequently. I was driving. This happened probably 2 months ago. I took a back road that I usually don't take because it goes past where my ex-girlfriend lives, and but that day I was taking it because I just wanted to take the scenic route. It was such a nice day, and I came up to the top of the hill, where about 50 yards from there is the road that she would come out of. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be awkward if she pulled out right now? And 5 seconds later, there she comes. So I just slowed down and brought my car to a stop and let her go out. And it happens a lot with certain people, not other people. My old film agent in LA, he retired probably 5 or 6 years ago. But even though we've never met face to face, we had a great rapport, and we still talk all the time. In fact, he's the one who introduced me to my current manager in LA. And I can always sense when he's going to call me, all to the day, not maybe not to the hour, but to the day. I'll be just sitting around and say, I think Jonathan's going to give me a call, and he calls me. He'll call me that evening. Those kind of things happen frequently. So I was sort of prepared for these things, Elizabeth, and through my reading and also through my past, because I had a lot of things happen to me in the past. Back when I was meditating, I had a clairaudience twice. I heard celestial music twice when I was
Mhm.
meditating, and as I said, I frequently hear when I'm alone and quiet and walking in the woods, I'll hear somebody call my name, and the cowards won't show themselves. So I turn around and say, "Where are you? You got to show me yourself. You're not playing fair here." So, and I guess I've always had a kind of playful attitude towards it because I believe it. I know it. That world exists. I don't know the nature of that world, and I keep saying that what I care about is the nature of reality, the true nature of reality. I want to know what it is. I think I know now why we're here. I think I know what we are supposed to do in terms of our relationship with the prime source, with spirit. I think I understand that. But as I say frequently, a little confirmation would be nice. Let's make this two-way instead of one-way. But yeah, it never got. I never got to the point where it made me feel crazy. It got me to the point where I feel frustrated that I don't understand every aspect of it. People, three-dimensional people, have come closer to making me crazy than anything having to do with the spirit world has.
Yeah.
You too, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. 100% on that. When you had your near death experiences, what kind of takeaways did you experience and feel after those moments?
Uh, well, the most dramatic one was the car, the teleportation of it, the instantaneous teleportation of the car. And I just sat there saying, not WTF, but I just sat there saying, what's happening?
Yes.
What, who, why, what, and you just, it happens and you don't know why. And as much as because I've never, I've learned to be more confident in myself in certain ways as a writer and I used to have very good athletic ability and now those things are slipping away. But as a younger man, certainly when that happened to me, I was not a very confident person. I didn't have high self-esteem. I had very low self-esteem, and so it was always okay. Somebody or something saved me from death, from absolute death or being paralyzed or something. Why me? Why me? I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm just a kid, from the coal fields of Pennsylvania, and why me? And that question still is in my mind. But the only possible answer is because you have something to do. There's something you need to do before you can go. And because it was inevitable. I was going 65 miles an hour. I was going to smash head on into the tail end of a loaded coal truck, and I was going to die instantaneously. Um, I didn't see any other way out of that. So why? Why was I saved from that? I and I still ask that question. I've always asked that question. Um, but I have accepted the fact that I have a job to do here on Earth,
Right.
and it generally turns out to be the things that you're good at, the things that you're best at, is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be having an effect, an influence through those talents and gifts that you were given to use.
Hmm.
And when I found out, no, I never got any encouragement in high school. It was just hey, good catch the other night. It was never hey, you write really well. Uh, then I got to college and I did start getting it, and a couple of professors made it clear to me that I shouldn't be an accounting major. So so you get guidance along the way. Did they know they were giving me guidance? I don't know if they knew it or not, but they were good professors. And one of them I didn't even know. I wasn't even a student of his. But I think you get signs along the way as what you are supposed to be doing. And I keep saying, when I meditate every morning, I do a prayer of gratitude and for all the blessings I have and everything, including the talent I've been given. And I said, but I'm not done yet. I'm not ready to go. I still have a couple more books I want to write. So please, if my time, if I've done what I'm supposed to do, and I don't think I have, I don't think I'm finished yet. I said, please give me some more time. I have a new granddaughter I want to spend some time with. So, but I have come to understand and accept that my job is to be a writer and to connect emotionally, have my stuff connect emotionally to people, to do what good writing should do. It's a connection between the reader and the writer. And those things are important. It took me a long time to realize that my work, to accept the fact that my work had an effect on people. But I've had so many readers come up to me and tell me that this book or that book changed my life. And I think that's an overstatement, but I think they feel compelled to say it because they felt such a deep connection with the characters of the book that they feel confident saying that. I had one woman who was talking to me about The Boy Who Shoots Crows, and she said, and her husband's sitting right beside her. So for a minute there, I was a little, she said, when I finished The Boy Who Shoots Crows, she said, I missed your voice so much. And I looked at her husband and I wanted to say, she doesn't mean me, she means the voice of the movie. She had probably explained that to him beforehand because he just smiled. And she said, I carried that book around for a week. I literally carried it around for a week because I didn't want to let go of that voice. And what she meant was the connection. That connection she felt probably for the main character, who was a woman. And that's how writers affect readers. When I was working on one of the early DeMarco books, I had a psychic, because when they ask you what your purpose is, and I mean, they ask you if you have any questions, and I say, yeah, I want to know if I'm doing what I was supposed to be doing and fulfilling my purpose, because I don't see what good mystery novels are doing people other than entertainment. And they said, no, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I don't know, maybe Spirit likes a good mystery. Who knows?
We're going to turn it to the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Randall?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. As a kid, what was something you were curious about then that you're still curious about now?
God, women, just the again, and I didn't have the phraseology for it. I didn't have the lexicon for it when I was younger. But when I look back, it was all the nature of reality. What is the nature of reality? And I used to say the mother of all questions is, why are we here? Why do we exist? Because I knew it wasn't an accident. There are 100 scientists, material scientists, who will admit, and certainly quantum scientists who will admit, this did not happen by accident. The odds are astronomical that it could ever happen by accident. There are too many factors that have to be honed to a fine point for life to exist, for the planet to exist. So that I think I've never questioned. I've always been a believer in a divine intelligence. I've frequently shaken my fist at it when I was younger and said, "Why, son of a bitch, why?" But I don't do that anymore. I'm content with the fact that I'll learn one of these days. Not in this life, but in one of them.
Mhm. What is something that you've walked into as a teen that changed your life perspective?
Well, that I walked into a professor's office who I thought was going to chew me out for cheating for writing uh, writing a couple poems for my friend to turn in for his assignment. I walked into that thinking I'm getting expelled because I didn't know this professor. It was my friend's professor. I walked into his office because I was raised by an ex-Marine, and his theory was you make a mistake, you own it. And so, I honored that, and I showed up at the office as he requested, and I thought I was going to get expelled, and I ended up changing the path of my career.
Mm.
That's probably the most dramatic thing that happened.
Mm-hmm. The third question we're going to change up from your last time being on the show. Instead of what's the oddest food combo you've liked and tried, what was the most delicious piece of food or a meal that you've ever experienced?
Well, I'm trying to think restaurants, but I'm a pretty good cook of the things that I know how to cook, and I experiment. 'Cause I have to experiment with everything. I make great soups, everything from gumbo to vegetable, and in fact, I just finished a pot of I can't make just regular ham, cabbage, and potato soup. I have to put sweet potatoes in it and carrots in it, and
Mm.
I have to put different kinds of meats in it. So I'll make these huge pots of soup, and they used to get eaten pretty fast when I had a couple of boys and a wife living with me. But now I live alone. I still make the same size pot, and I eat it for 3 meals a day for 3 days. So I love the soups I make, but I also, boy, if I had somebody, if I had to order my last meal before they put me in the chair, uh, it would be an assemblage of things. I would do seared tuna with some teriyaki sauce and wasabi, and certainly the pickled ginger. Um,
Mm.
I might have them throw in a rice bowl of my own making. I love to make rice bowls with my own shredded beef or shredded chicken and all kinds of other neat stuff. And then I want a whole pecan pie
Mhm.
and maybe about a quart of French roast coffee.
Ooh, I'm seeing like this whole table spread and all these
Yeah,
different smells.
this is why I love buffets, and some of them are awful. I went to a Chinese buffet 2 weeks ago in a place where I'd never gone to it because I, I looked I looked it up on I think it was Yelp or the Yellow Pages, and they got great reviews. But this was a little working class town, and I'm a working class guy. I grew up with I got blue collar blood, but I learned fairly quickly that as I got older, that is, say when my palate got a little more refined, uh, that what my parents thought was delicious, I no longer thought was delicious because it was covered with salt and butters and grease and um, uh, but I have learned to really appreciate buffets. A really good buffet where I can try something of this and something of that, and I can have 6 different things on my plate, and then I can go back with the second round and get 6 other things on my plate. I don't like one note meals. I don't like I love Mexican food. I love Italian food, but I don't want to make a meal of it. I want it as a side dish because they're sort of monotonic in their flavors. Everything with Mexican red sauce on it tastes like everything else, and everything with Italian red sauce on it tastes like everything else with Italian red sauce on it. So I don't like to make a meal out of pasta, but I do like to make I'll make some bow tie uh, pasta and put some red sauce on it, and then I'll make another dish. It's pasta primavera with garlic and olive oil and some vegetables thrown in.
Mhm.
Maybe another, which is a pasta puttanesca, put the black olives and so. So I like to change things up. I'm not a man who is satisfied with same thing. I have a very low tolerance for boredom.
And
I get
all the
bored.
sensory details, Randall, of like all the different flavors that aren't the same. It's a different palate and a different experience with every bite
Yeah,
that you're trying too.
yeah,
Mhm,
exactly. Yeah.
mhm.
What they call a amuse-bouche. If I could just have a whole plate full of amuse-bouches, that would be fine.
I don't know about anyone else, but I'm starving and I'm going to go make some different forms of pasta after our show.
Good.
Before we end today, Randall, what advice can you give our listeners and viewers on living a creatively abundant life?
Ooh. Well, unfortunately, uh, most people a wholly creative life, which is what I live now, fortunately. But I had to pay my dues for it. I had to teach,
Mhm.
and teaching is not all bad. I love my interaction with my students. I adored that. That percentage of students who really cared. And sometimes it was a very small percentage, but there are always those students who want to learn, who are eager to learn. And I adored my time with them. But administrative duties, reading, 120 freshman compositions every three weeks. But I did it, and I did it willingly because it allowed me to take the rest of my time and focus on what I truly love to do. So I think for most people, unless you have your trust fund baby or you marry someone wealthy, I think most people have that. So finding something to do that pays the bills that is not going to make you miserable every day. And then just try to be as creative doing that as you can, as I tried to be as a teacher. And then in the meantime, have some other thing that really fulfills you and satisfies your soul. Because if your soul isn't satisfied in life, you're going to be a miserable person. And I've
Mhm.
had certainly had those moments of despair. Why I I didn't even want to live. But when you have that other thing to go to, or that thing to go to fulfill all of your time, I mean, whatever you have to do in life, uh, find some way to make it joyful. I loved ironing my kids' clothes. I loved washing their clothes. And it's a cliche. You grab their clothes, you smell them because you're just so full of love for your child. And yes, it gets tedious, especially when you do it for 18 years and never get a thank you. But but you're still doing it with love. And so find something that you can love. I I have no problem with quitting jobs I didn't love. I I, I
Mhm.
did it frequently when I was younger. Uh, if it finally got to the point where the money or the joy did not justify the misery of the job, I said goodbye. I'm out of here. Life's too short to live in misery. I uh, I wrote an essay once which I did nothing with, but I showed it to a woman recently, and she said you should turn this into a book. So I'm thinking about maybe something a very slender book, but it was called PIPS, PIPPS, and it's my recipe for having a happy life, a fulfilling life. And I break a person's life down into 5 categories: personal, physical, intellectual, spiritual, and there's 5 different categories. Yeah, and I find that if I can do at least 3 of those things each day, if I can devote time to 3 of those things each day, even if I only sit down for 15 minutes with my guitar, and I uh, play a song or two and just finger it until my fingers hurt because I don't play it enough. Same with the piano. If I take a walk, that does 2 things. That satisfies my physical need for some aerobic exercise, and at the same time, my spiritual need for communing with nature. And if you can find ways to satisfy 3 or 4 of those needs every day, I think you're going to live a much happier, more fulfilled, more creative life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Randall.
Lauri, why is it that we only talk for like 10 minutes, you and
I? Just goes by way too damn fast.
Yeah. Way too fast.
Where can the listeners and viewers find you if they have any questions about your upcoming projects or after the show?
I'm glad you asked me that because I would have forgotten to say it. My website is www.randallsilvis, RANDALLSILVIS.com, no spaces. And if you go to that website, at the top and also at the bottom, I think there's a place to sign up for my free monthly newsletter. And it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things, what's happening, what I've been doing lately, what I'm working on, what I'm reading, and I've added what I'm watching, and I'm thinking about adding a section, WTF, what ticks me off, and and there's always a writing tip as well, and it's free every month. It usually comes at the end of the month, so just sign up for that. And I'd also really love it if you would check out my YouTube channel. About a year ago, I got interested in making what I now call video vignettes. I started out writing as a 14-year-old, and I've been doing it ever since. I started out writing poetry and song lyrics, and and I gave up on that career when I had an AR director in Nashville invite me to come down and show him my work, and I was, oh my God, no, I can't play in front of anybody. I still don't sing in front of anybody, and I'm not playing my own music. But I think I have 35 video vignettes up now, and each one of them is a poem or a song lyric, and I put it to music, not my music, but free music online, and images, so that I tell a kind of 2.5-minute story, a little vignette. And I have a great amount of enjoyment working on those. On rainy days when I can't walk or ride my motorcycle, I'll make a video vignette. It takes me about 4 hours now. It used to take me 3 days to make one, but now I can do one in 4 hours. And I really enjoy them. They're a little bit rough because I don't trouble myself with, making sure that I enunciate everything clearly. The words are on the screen, and making sure that everything's perfect. There are some rough edges to it, but I do it just for fun and for the love of doing it. And if you like little short poems and song lyrics, check it out.
And we'll put those links down below as well, so it's easy access to find Randall. Thank you so much for those who have watched us live and who will be watching on the replay. Remember, as you go about the rest of your week, to find the things that are working within your life. You are the creator of your own story. What steps are you going to take next? Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Randall.
That's great. That's great, Lauri. Thank you very much.